Hello and welcome to the screencast. In this screencast I would like to talk with you about coastline drawing. So first of all, what are coastlines? Let's check out OpenStreetMaps for that. And we are already here in Copenhagen, and let's, for example, move in a little bit in Christianshavn. Now what a coastline is this dashed line here in purple, and a coastline defines a land area and separates that from some water area. And as we have seen, there is this water tag for away, so that one can say this is a body of water, but for many of these water areas this is actually not true. So for example, if we ask for this water area over here, we don't see some water here, but what we do see is this coastline. So this coastline is a single path and it defines this area here. How does a coastline look in the OSM file? Let's just have a look at our small.osm file over here, and let's search for coastline. So we see a coastline is away. If the tag is natural, then the value could be coastline. So let's first support these coastlines in our program. For that, we go to our model, in which I go to this place. We look for a tag. If it's natural, we here checked if that is being water. But of course, now we could also check if the value equals coastline. In this case, the type we want to use is OSMWayType.coastline. This is currently not in use, so there is no enumeration of that type in OSMWayType. We could add that here, but we can also use our IDE to do this task for us, and that's what I prefer to do. So we show the intended actions and I create this enumeration constant. Now our program will automatically tag these coastlines correctly. Let's have a look at them. So we go to our canvas and let's say we command all of the drawing stuff out except from coastlines. So for shape coastline, model.get OSMWayType coastline. Let's say just draw this coastline just to have a look at it. And let's run it. Let's first check if I'm running it at a small enough file. I'm running it in Copenhagen, and that's fair enough. So let's run this. This is going to take something like 4 seconds. And those are the coastlines that we draw. And as you can see, this pretty much works already. There seems to be a small issue over here with this coastline. Yeah, but all of these individual paths are already drawn. So this is the coastline. Now what do we want to do? So as we have seen, all of these individual coastlines, they are individual paths. For the drawing to be correct, what we actually need to do is we have to stitch them together. Yeah, so let's go back to our browser. And for example, in here, to separate this area of land from the area of water, what we need to do is we have to look out for these coastlines. So we have to take this one. This is going to be a single way in our OSM file. And then this other one here is another coastline. So that this works correctly, we have to merge them together. Let's think about this for a moment. Let's go back in our model. What we know is that, or what we know from the OSM file, is that we have these ways and some of them are single coastlines. What we are currently doing in our model is that once we see that a way ends, from this way we create a path and add this path to our model. But of course we can't do this for coastlines, because for a coastline, once this here ends, we're actually not sure if we found everything so far to make up this complete coastline, which actually goes around this body of land. So let's separate these two things. Let's say if the type of our way is a coastline, then we kind of have to stitch coastlines together. Otherwise, we do what we used to do before. So how do we stitch these coastlines together? What we need is, we need a way to store these OSM ways. And once a new coastline comes in, we have to find out, is there another way that we can now merge this coastline with? How could we support this? So in here this is one coastline and this is another coastline. So let's say this one comes in first. Then what we know is, once this way is explored, we know where does this way start and where does this way end, and we should check at these ending points, is there another way, another coastline that we have found so far? This is actually a very good task for a map. So what we want to use is, we want to use a hash map for this. And the hash map stores an OSM node, ending points, and maps them to a way. That's the coastline. Equals new, let's say, hash map. So what I want to do here is, actually I want to stitch them together. So I want to search for coastlines that can be merged with the current way. So this way here contains all the nodes that are on this specific coastline. So kind of what I want to do is, I want to ask the map, is there something at the beginning node? Do you know a node that matches the beginning node of our current coastline? So what I kind of want to do is, I want to write coastlines.get, and then I would like to say something like, where does this way start? Yeah, where does it come from? In the very same way, I want to say, how does it, so we start somewhere, and maybe at the ending point of our current way, there's another coastline that we can merge with. So there is something that could come after the final node. So this way, wherever it goes to, maybe we know a coastline that we can merge that with. So we see there are two methods missing now. There's from and to missing. Let's create these methods, and I'm again using IntelliJ shortcuts for that. So the message, the from method, so the OSM array is just an array list of OSM nodes, so we can just access the normal methods in here from an array list, for example, get. So we get the 0th element, the first element in here. And of course we want to return this element. And what is true? This is the very last element in this list, and we access it like that. Perfect. Now these two calls, they make a lot of sense. Let's say this new way, let's call it a merged way. Let's actually call it merged. And what we do here is we ask, if before is not null, what do we want to do? We know that before ends where way starts. So what I want to do is I want to say the first part of merged is the first part of before, but I actually don't want to include the final node because this final node is already in our way. That's way.from. So we do it like this. Okay, that's the sublist method, and that one doesn't include this last element that you give it. So this will not report the final node on before. Now I want to add the current way, and of course if we can also, if there is something at the very end, at after, then we want to merge that one in as well. And how do we do this? We say after.sublist, and again after contains way.to, and what we want to do is we want to remove this very first node. So after.sublist 1 to after.size is what we're interested in. Okay, and from that we have a new coastline, possibly merged together with two other coastlines seen so far, and we put that one back into our map. Coastlines.put, and now we put it in, so we put a merge there, and we do it in the two-way, and we do it in the with the from node, because we don't know whether the ending or the starting node is going to be important for the next coastline that should come. Okay. Add these three paths together. Okay, now this is going to run through, and whenever we see a coastline, it will find something to merge with, hopefully. So at the very end, we have this very large coastline, coastlines hash map. And the idea here is that if we go back to our browser, then for example, this area is going to be one coastline. Okay, so this area in here, that is going to be one key. And then there are other areas, for example, the one here, and this will be another key. And it also consists of all these merged lines, but each individual key is associated with then a coastline that is hopefully closed. So let's have a look at this. First, so when do we actually add those coastlines to our model? Well, so we can't do it in here with all these ways. So let's just ask, like, what is the very end? When do we know that this ends? And we know that our file ends when we see this closing OSM tag. So let's go down here and do something when we see a closing OSM tag. And that is convert all coastlines found to paths. So what I now want to do is I want to go through the entry set. Oops. Entry set. So when I want to iterate, I need a map entry, and that's an entry from OSM node to OSM way. This is a single coastline. Okay. As you have seen, all these coastlines are in there twice. Let's fix this here. All these coastlines are in there twice. So let's say we only take the one where our coastline dot get key equals coastline dot get value. That's away from. Doesn't matter if we choose from or to, but we should choose only one of it. Otherwise, we put each coastline twice in there, and that's going to hurt performance. Okay, and now all we have to do is our coastline.getValue. That is now our way. Yeah, and just let's move that up here. That's our way. And we need to transform this OSM way, which is a list of OSM nodes, to a path. Yeah, and I guess you have also seen when you looked through this code that we should refactor it a bit, but that's something that you can do in your project phase. So I'm going to reuse this transformation from a way to a Java path in here. And I say, so path equals new path 2D. And then there is a node involved, and that is node equals way.get 0. So that's something that we also know from here. So then we move our path to this location, and then we draw all of these lines. At the very end, we should add our path to our model. And we do this by calling add, and the way type now is coastline, and we add this path. So let's have a look at if it's still showing us some. Okay, this looks pretty good. So we still see all these shapes here. Yeah, what I kind of miss here is this is a coastline for this part. I'm a bit unsure whether this was not part of the actual data set. Let's see where this is going. Okay, now let's actually fill this. So how you want to use this is that in the very beginning, and we are going to reuse this rectangle we created. Before we actually transform, what we want to say is we want to actually fill our whole drawing area, and we want to fill it with our color for water. Let's take this one in here. And then from there, what we want to do is we want to fill coastlines. Okay, and let's see which color should we pick. Let's go for some, maybe okay, I don't know if this is going to hurt our eyes. Let's take this color. Yeah, and lately I have this issue that this somehow doesn't work anymore. Which color did we come up with? Actually, this looks quite fine. 237. So 237, 237, 237. And let's give that a look. And I hope you agree that this looks pretty good already. There are a few issues here. Yeah, and I think this might be a problem. No, I don't think this could be this highway. But you see something here is a bit wrong. And I would suspect that this comes, but other things are pretty nice. Yeah, that this comes from how we say what is the inside and what is the outside of this polygon that we have created. Because what we are currently using is, and you can read that up if you want. So there are so-called winding rules. And this is how the polygon decides whether things are inside or outside of the polygon, and like which part is the part that you actually want to fill. And there are two of these winding rules, and the first one is non-zero, and the last one is, the second one is even odd, and the standard one I think is here non-zero. Let's just pick even odd, just to see what's going on. And no, this was not it. There are also some strange things happening in here. So I do think the like something is still wrong with the merging here. But please just look up this even odd rule, and you'll see that this is a more robust rule here for declaring what is the inside and what is the outside. Okay, so I'm sorry, we have to go through this one more time. So we have this coastline. It's up here, and we set that one, I would say, correctly. Then we check for this type coastline. If that's the case, then we ask what is before, what comes after, and then we make a new way. Okay, and first we add all of these before elements, then we add our way, and then we add all of these after. This, and I do think that looks fine as well. Okay, so let me just think out loud here. What could be the problem? There's this way. Maybe there is an issue in the way computation. So there's from and there's to. Yeah, so this is the very first node, this is the very last node. This seems to be okay. Let's go through this part here one more time. So we go through all of these coastlines. We start at the very first node, and then we go through that, and then we add the path as a OS in. Okay, I mean, it almost works, but here from this part we see that there is something odd going on. I mean, this can't be it. No, but we do see that there is some issues with these coastlines over here. Yeah, they do look kind of, here in Christianshavn, they look kind of broken. Oh, okay. So, what do you... Yeah. Of course, what we want to do is, so currently, yeah, we took out these, we got these coastlines, but we never removed them from the hash map. So we only added a lot of coastlines. Let's try that. We really remove the old coastlines because we can't use them, and they were going to give some drawing errors. Because for them it makes no sense to be filled. And there we go. No. I mean, this part looks much better now. This part looks almost correct. But still in here, we have a kind of a bug. This time we remove, we put, and we put. Yeah, as you can see, this is like this is kind of a painful experience here for me as well. And now I don't know if this is a problem with, but it shouldn't be a problem with my data set. So this part here, Christianshavn, this should be correctly rendered. I'm just going to include all the other water areas as well. Maybe they have something to do with that. No. So of course I think what we do wrong is that this could actually be the very same element, I think. After could also be before. That one, then what we would do there is that we would actually add a new path once again, which would be incorrect because we already closed that. If this is the case, we already closed it. Let's run that again. Okay, yeah. And we've really seen this here in Christianshavn, because there, I think the reason that this only appeared here was that they all consist of these two coastlines. One over here and one over here. And there were before and after were actually the same way. So if we ask here what is before, it's going to be this way. If it's after, it's going to be this way. So what we actually did is we merged this path and then this path again and then this path again, and that makes little sense. Okay, and this is how the Copenhagen.osm file looks like. And let's get an idea if this actually works for all of Copenhagen. So let's start with Denmark. That's up here. And let's cross our fingers. Okay. And this is how it looks. And I hope you agree that this is actually a pretty good view. And that's how you can draw these coastlines, how you can fill them. And now all you need to do is you actually have to put some other information on this map. But I hope you see that you're pretty far already with this. So thanks for watching and have fun improving on that.